Hello everyone, I'm Jason, the creator of the Army Showcase and host of the Tabletop Battlefield over at www.tabletopbattlefield.com. And today in the Recon Report, instead of the usual news or maybe take a quick look at a new game or something, I'm going to show you a classic hobby tip. And that's of course removing paint from your figures. In front of me here I got some old War Machine figures. I actually painted them up, oh boy, back when I started playing the game. So since then I've actually gone ahead and became a lot better painter. I've probably painted, 3-4 full Warhammer 40k armies since then. So what I want to do is take these old figures, strip the paint off them so I can repaint them and make them look a lot cooler. Now here's what you're going to do. There's several ways to do this. The main ingredient I'm using over here is a pine cleaner. You can probably use just about any brand of pine cleaner, but just for legal disclaimer purposes, this one I'm about to show you counts as general cleaning. Read the label so you know why I say that. Other than that, pine cleaner, you got your figures. Get some rubber gloves out here. Maybe if you need a little rag, if you need to mop something up or spill some things out. What I've got here is just a very simple kind of little rubber container, a little microwavable rubber container. Obviously one thing you want to do when you buy these things, don't mix these with the ones you put food in, because once you put a whole bunch of chemicals in these, it's kind of nasty. You do not want to eat out of them. Also, the last and most important thing is get some old clothes on here. You see I'm wearing kind of a crummy t-shirt, it's already got paint on it, just some old gym shorts, because this stuff can really mess up your clothes. Some other chemicals, obviously all cleaning chemicals are kind of nasty like that, so that's what you want to be careful of. The basic premise is really simple. You're going to go ahead, start with getting your gloves on, and then fill up the container with water. For some reason I've used warm water. Frankly, it probably doesn't matter, but that's just how I've always done things. And fill up the container maybe 3/4 full of water. Then bring it back and just put a little bit of the pine cleaner in the water. And if you got a spoon or something to stir it with, go ahead and stir it. And of course, as with the container, if you're using like a spoon to stir it with, don't take this spoon and stick it back in your drawer, or probably just consider it to be used for hobby stuff and don't worry about ever eating out of it again. And now it's as simple as putting the figures in the water pine cleaner mixture and just wait. Sometimes once I get the lid on, I kind of maybe like just to shake it up a little bit for, I don't know why, it really doesn't mean no apparent reason for that. I usually set it for a couple hours, sometimes even overnight. And what I find is once this is done, we're going to go ahead, take them out, and start cleaning all the paint off them. As for the topic of plastic figures, because here War Machine figures are all metal, I've done this process on plastic figures. Some people like to use pine cleaners, some people use other stuff for plastic figures. For me, I really haven't seen any real damage to the figures from the pine cleaner. The details still seem to be there. The one odd little thing is the actual bare plastic, once you clean it off, is a little bit lighter than when it comes off the sprue. Why that is, I don't really know. The reality, because at least for me, most of the damage the figures cause during this process are going to happen during the scrubbing phase. You're scrubbing all the paint off and your brush is going back and forth trying to scrub the paint off. That's when you're likely to do damage to the figures. So let's give it a couple hours, we'll come back and we'll show you how to clean these figures off. Alright, well it's been a couple hours, so let's take a look here and see how the figures are doing. One thing to note is that sometimes the pine cleaner does cause the super glue or whatever type of glue you use to hold the figures together to kind of fall apart. So be prepared that you're probably going to have to reassemble some things. And take some of the figures out here. Yep, here's one who's actually had his shield and his sword fall off, so like I was saying, pieces do fall apart. And the process here is relatively straightforward. You take a figure out, get an old brush, like a toothbrush for example. Obviously, as with the food, don't try to stick this thing in your mouth, but I guess that's assumed, but it doesn't hurt to always be clear about that kind of thing. Then go over a sink, preferably over a sink, and just start scrubbing away. And what you'll find very quickly is that, oh, that's another good point. Before you start scrubbing really quickly, if there's a drain in the sink, cover it up somehow. Because like I said, the glue gets weakened. Sometimes small pieces fall off the figures and you don't want them going down the drain. As my arm just snapped off here. My figure's arm. But you'll notice as you start scrubbing the figures off, especially metal figures, they come off really quickly. And what you're going to find is you're not going to get all the paint off. Unfortunately, there's still going to be little bits of paint that sit down in the crevices and things like that. So you're not going to get it all off, but it should be enough to where you can go ahead and reprime the figure and do a nice repaint of it. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea of what you're doing. It's a relatively simple, straightforward process. It does take a while because you got to wait a couple hours for the figures to soak, and then it can be a tedious process to scrub all the paint off, especially more so in plastic figures. I find for some reason plastic figures, it's harder to scrub the paint off than with metal figures. And of course, when you're doing an entire army of 100 figures, it just gets really annoying. But it's what you got to do if you want to go ahead and do a nice repaint of your figures, because frankly, probably when you started playing these games, you're probably a terrible painter. Now, if you're like me, you're a better one, and you want to make your figures look better than ever. So, that's about it. Thanks for watching this episode of the Recon Report. For more information on World of Miniature Wargaming or to submit your own content, check out the Army Showcase and Tabletop Battlefield podcast over at www.tabletopbattlefield.com. Once again, I'm Jason. Have a good night.